All right. Greetings to everyone. I would like to start off with another question. Do you think it is hard to speak up from up front? If you do think it is like so, raise your hand. Well, if you would have asked me this question about a year ago, I wouldn't have said that it is hard. I would have said that it's impossible. And I would say that because I was in such a mental state that it would not allow me to speak with others. I had severe dissociative problems. I was an extreme skeptic. And by putting everything to doubt, I eventually got to believe, as you believe that I'm here up front, hopefully you believe that I'm here up front, that's how hard I believed that I am not real. And as you see, I had a problem with a corruption of my reasoning. And I reached a point where I kind of left out all of my morality. I was at a point of zero morality, and I had a lot of hate. I had hate for the bad people because they were hurting the good people. I had hate for the good people because they never did anything about the bad people. I had hate for God for not doing anything for the good people or with the bad people. And then I had hate for myself because I couldn't help anybody either, and I was doing evil myself. I was just a blob of hate. And I just wanted everybody to sort of perish and disappear. That was my solution to all the problems of humanity. I thought everybody was just supposed to disappear, and that would bring complete happiness. And you could kind of see that with such thoughts in mind, I was very sick. I had a lot of infections in my body, and fever was my daily routine. But now I speak from up front, and because this layer from the underneath has been changed. I'm not sick, as you can see, and I don't have hate for myself, nor do I have hate for God, nor for other people. And now I trust God, and I want to partner up with Him, to work with Him, and to be actually useful for the people around me. And before, I was thinking that God was just a cynical maniac that just loved seeing suffering. Now I see Him as the one that wants to alleviate suffering. And my reasoning changed quite a bit, because now I can say that I am real, and I can say it with full conviction. I can say that fully convinced. The thing is that God uses all of the circumstances of our lives for the better. And I can see that all that I have been through before was just for the better. And that is because God needs to let us get down to the pit, to the bottom of the pit. So then we realize our need for Him. And we are going to seek Him. And we are actually going to have a chance to be saved. Because when I was younger, I could not see that I was wrong. We are born wrong, and God knows that. So He offers us a way to get out of this wrong way. But if we don't admit that we are wrong, He can't help us. You see, I thought I was a very moral person. I thought that few were like me, because I can remember things up to when I was 6 months old about that. And one of the first things that I can remember is that my mom just put me aside. She had a fight with my dad, and then I wanted to grab something to put into my mouth. I'm not sure if it was something edible. But in that moment, I stopped as a baby. I remember no words. There were no words. I had not yet learned to speak. And I just thought, I cannot cry because that would make my mom upset. And I refrained my crying, and I was like, no, that would make mom upset because she's already upset. And this was kind of the mechanism by which my mind worked. And this kind of way of just wanting to cry, but just staying there for the other person, but actually it was just for myself. Because as a baby, I needed my mom happy. I wanted my mom happy, so I wanted her for me to be happy. growing, this kind of mechanism of being could be seen in me. I would give up my own pleasure for others, especially for adults. I was capable of giving up cake, vacations, phones, games, and anything else if adults would praise me for it. So I thought I was quite a moral child because I could give up anything, while the other kids were just clinging on those things. I especially liked when other children were compared to me and their parents would say, "Why are you not like him?" You can kind of see these kind of thought behaviors that were set up as a child, but another thing happened that reinforced that behavior to the extreme. You see, my dad, my biological dad, had mental disorders, severe mental disorders. And he would just run wild and beat up everybody in the house. My mom, my brother, and sometimes me. I was very small. I was about 5 to 6 years old. And my mom endured a lot of beatings for a long time. But she had a baby. She had my younger brother. We had little food. We were on bread and margarine for 6 months. And when you have a baby, you gotta really go and have some food. So there were the Pentecostals that had their evangelism, and they would give food. Hardly my mom left me and my older brother at home, and she went there for the baby. Meanwhile, my biological father came home, and I was there with my younger brother, my older brother, because my younger brother was in the belly. And when my dad came home, he started running wild. It was already evening. My mom had not came back from the Pentecostals, and it was winter. It was cold outside, and he took us out the balcony. The balcony was about 13 meters height. I was 6 years old, and he just took us out in the pajamas, barefoot. No, the balcony was not closed, and we just stood there, freezing. He was yelling that he's gonna kill us. He's gonna throw us down, but God kept him back. He wanted to throw us. He really wanted to grab on us and throw us over, but God would not allow him to. He then got inside the house and closed the balcony door, and then he did some nasty things there because he was having mental disorders. We just stood freezing there, and eventually one of the neighbors got out on her balcony. And when she saw us freezing, we could barely yell because we were cold. Eventually, when she saw us, we just heard the roaming, bumbling, boom, 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 and then we heard the door of our apartment just bang. Then we heard my dad like, poof. I think she struck him with something. And then she opens up the door to the balcony. She takes us to her apartment up until my mom comes back. But as a child, that thing left a huge stamp on me. I am not trash to be thrown away. I must prove my value. I'm not trash. That was kind of the major thing that I got out of that experience with. And with the other thing that I already had to always please adults, this mechanism was set into place. After this, my mom broke up with my father because she saw it was very dangerous. And later on, my mom got remarried with a man that I call father to this day, a very brave man to take a woman with 3 kids and to actually raise the kids properly. But you see, the pattern for evil was already set in place. I was there pleasing people, always. And I got to be quite on the liking of one of the well-known preachers in Romania. He's also a medical minister. And when I gave up a vacation to go and learn and work with him, hard work, gardening, he just stuck to me. And he offered me and my parents the opportunity that I should go there and learn how to become a missionary with him. And I started having a couple of weeks at this man and a couple of weeks at home, but gradually the time that I spent there was more than what I spent at home. At this point, I started learning everything like a sponge because I thought that my value is given by how by as much intellectual capacity as I had and as much physical work as I could do. And by the age of 10, I had already 40 books read, mostly Ellen White's books and other religious books. And at this point, I thought I was the best. My identity would be number one. In 5th grade, I was doing homeworks for 8th graders. And as a child, everybody would put me to the higher standard. What for others would be excelling behavior, for me, that was the norm. I thought that I was quite something. At this point, I was critiquing my parents. I was critiquing the teachers at school when they were lecturing the other kids. I was critiquing preachers while they were preaching. I told them, no, Ellen White actually said that word in that paragraph. Meanwhile, they were preaching. And it was only my tutor that I viewed as smarter than I was, so I never critiqued him, the man that I lived with. But in one day, he told me to make a short presentation to prove an atheist wrong. I wrote it fast. It was like 15 minutes. But at the end, I really asked myself, well, why do I really believe in God anyways? That was a tough question. I was 12 years old. I just took it aside, but the seed of doubt got planted in my heart. It was there, slowly growing for the next couple of years. My family lived quite isolated, and so did this man. When my family got moved to this more isolated place closer to this man so I could go this pendulum back and forth, I had a lot of time to think. And during that time of thinking, I realized that all of this desire that I had to learn more, to sort of just drown myself in books, was just running away from the problems that I had when I was a child. Because when you go through severe abuse as a child, you're just going to stick with anything that's going to take your mind away from it. And for me, that was learning books, all of these kind of things. For others, most often it's drugs. But as for others with drugs, so was learning for me. My mom would often find me at 4 a.m. reading a book with a flashlight. She had to take all of the flashlights out of my room every night. And at this point, when I was so alone, I started doing homeschooling. I was just having nobody to compare with. I started to have this identity crisis, because up until then, who was I? I'm the best. But now, who am I comparing with? There was nobody on the hills. It was just me working and learning. And one of the things that began popping into my mind constantly was the kind of abusive home that I had when I was smaller. And it's the kind of abuse that it's hard to talk about. It's 18+ abuse. And I really began questioning what's really happening around in this world. Why would God allow a child to go through such horrible things? I remembered everything. Up until then, when I was in my schoolwork and all of that, I kind of forgot about the things that happened when I was a child. But at this point, I just had nobody to compare myself with, and I just saw myself. I remembered everything. It just came like a flood over me, and it was overwhelming. I had so many questions, and I was just puzzled. Why would God allow such things to happen if He's so good? At some point, I've learned how to access the dark web. There, you actually get to see the uncensored, raw testimonies of people that just tell you how they have been kidnapped, people from India, people from China. And when I started reading those, my mind got to really some dark places. My mind was just feeding on negativity. Then I wrote my own story there, and I posted it. And all the other people, because they had no God, they were all like, whoa, what you've been through. Oh my, how hard that must be. Oh, you must be severely debilitated to go through such things as a child. And I was like, actually, they are kind of right. That's not normal to live through as a child. And I began at that point to grow hate. I was just feeding hate daily. My imagination, it just had this evil fuel, and when I would see that much evil, our natural response to an injustice is anger. And I was just so angry, so hateful on the people that just did evil unto others. And that escalated quickly in a constant hate, and then hate to the point where I just wanted every evil person to just sit in hell. I did not believe in hell, but I was just, man, if hell would have been a real thing, it would have been so good for the evil people. But when I had those thoughts, I saw myself, whoa, I'm also so evil. To desire something like that? How could I do that? And then I began hating myself for hating people. Slowly, my hate turned to God because I just thought he's doing nothing. My views of God slowly drifted away, and I just thought that God wasn't a God at all. Maybe he's just some human that has more advanced technology, and then he's kind of playing tricks on us or something like that. I thought he's bored, and he likes to see suffering. And I was like, there is no God, actually. It's just some human that likes to see all suffering all around us. And with that kind of view about God, you don't get it overnight. It was a process. And that process is slow. The devil doesn't let you see that, oh, this is going to lead you to hate God. It's like, at first it's just, oh, I hate evil. You think that's righteous, to hate evil, right? But slowly, it's drifting you away from the hate to the evil people, to hate to yourself, to hate to other people that are actually just normal people, because they do nothing, you say. You are more conscious, you are more aware. They are not that aware. And then it turns you to hate to God. But all of that is starting from doubt. Now, you can kind of imagine what happened to my nervous system during that time. I was put under severe pressures, and I was having a lot of nervous issues. I was having a lot of tics. Like, my eyes would I would just blink a couple of fast times, but interchangeably, yes, like this. And then if I would just sit with somebody and talk at a table, I would be constantly knocking on the table or doing with my fingers or something, always stepping with my foot. I was in a constant sort of nervous state. And if somebody would have just touched me from behind on my neck area, I was just jumping forward a couple of meters and yelling out loud. It was my muscles were so tensioned that when somebody was touching me just a little bit, I would just jump out. And I was because I was with that man that was doing the natural medicine seminars, I had the occasion to be with some of the best people that do massage, and yet I've always refused them. No, please don't touch me. Now, because of these nervous issues, I started having a problem of the nervous system connecting to my tonsils. I started having a problem with a fungus on my neck, and a severe infection was happening. My whole neck, from the bottom up to the top, it was all white on the back with pus. Oftentimes in the morning, it was a routine to just spit a lot of blood and pus. And when I was breathing, I would feel as if I would breathe to a tube of iron, not to my neck. It was just crushing me. And every time when I would wake up in the morning, what do you think my first thought was? I want to die. First thing in the morning, when I wake up, just open up my eyes. I want to die. I want to die. Sometimes it was like on a repeat. I want to die, I want to die, I want to die. But that kind of desire was just there as a desire to escape from the cause that was making me suffer so much. Oftentimes I would just, as Mark said, he would like to be crushed onto the ground. I was more, how should I say, more specific. I wanted a hydraulic press to push my back and to crush me down to the earth, because I was born with malfunction of my spine. 3 of my vertebrae were not grown properly when I was small, and now instead of being equal, in one part they are big, in one part they are small. 3 of them right at the top here. It's called Heredea, and usually it should not hurt, but when you have such pressure on you, it's kind of bending you a lot, and those vertebrae, they started shifting away, and I started to also have hernia. Probably you know hernia hernia of a disc. And I was, during that time, I was an overly healthy person in the sense of the reforms that I was doing. I was drinking at least 3 liters of water a day. I would eat just twice a day, and when I was eating, I was always eating at least a bowl of onion. I ate 100 kilograms of onion in just one winter, raw onion, because I was thinking that's gonna heal me. You know, have you ever read about the anti-infectious properties of onion? I read a whole book about it, and I thought, man, this is gonna save me from my infection on my neck. And then I was like, oh, it's not enough. I should also take some garlic. And usually I would end a whole garlic in 1 day or 2. And there was not a single meal when I would just eat normally. My mom at some point, she was like, could you just stop this? Could you just eat normally? Because when you would see me at the table, I was always like, because it was hard, to eat all of that onion, and I would also eat some cayenne pepper, I was always like, and my mom was like, could you just stop? Just, at least once, have a good meal. Have a normal meal. And when I saw that the onion and the garlic was not doing its job, I was like, I gotta take some supplements. I gotta go on the plant side, because I've learned so much with that man that was doing medical ministry. I knew what was the normal dosage and what was acceptable to go over the normal dosage, and I went over. I would go with a 400 milliliter jar of honey with 2 tablespoons of propolis. Probably I pronounced that right. With propolis, and then 5 spoons of plants, like anti-infectious plants. Then I would get that in just 1 week, and then the other week another one. In the same week, I would also drink a 100 milliliter small bottle of black sesame seed oil. That's also very eucalypt-like. And then in the morning, I would have 1 big spoon of 7 Immunolife, that's an already made plant product, and I would keep it under my tongue for like 15 minutes. It's made of bitter Asian plants. And I was just holding it for 15 minutes, then getting it down with a big cup of water, and then another one. The plant was called the claw of the devil, and I was also taking that one. Nothing really worked. I was still so sick. Fever was my daily routine. I would get a little bit over 62 kilos, and then during the night, I would burn a lot. And when I would wake up, oh no, 55 again. Oh, that's bad. I would eat 7 kilograms of peanut butter in a week, 1 kilogram a day. Where was the fat going? I was like, what's happening? I was eating a lot of bread, sometimes nice slices a day, and no fat. What's wrong with me, I was thinking. At least a little bit of fat, because I'm burning. You know, hate, when you have it inside you, it's always like a fire. It's consuming you down to your bones. The body effects just stay there. It felt like nothing worked. I kind of got used to it, to having this always spitting of blood and the pain that I was going through, and that was kind of settled in. I was like, this is life. But then it got worse. Slowly, my mind started to drift away. After exposing my mind to such dark imagery on the dark web, and those images just became my fuel, I would just live my daily life. And during the normal day, when I would speak with people, dark imagery would just roll in the back of my mind. And at some point, I was so used to it that I just made up plausible kind of circumstances. I just made up evil stuff that could have happened to somebody. And that was just going around in my mind daily. And at some point, you know, if I would just like to stop it and turn my mind to something else, it felt like I was doing something wrong. And my mind was just pulling me back into that movie, kind of, to finish it. It was always supposed to end in a lot of hatred and death. If it wouldn't end, my mind would always pull me back, and even after 2 or 3 days, I would get back into the same scenario to just finish it. After being under such pressure, harder effects started, and I began having hallucinations. One thing to mention is that I was not the prodigal son. I was the son that stayed at home. I always did what my parents wanted. I always did what my preacher wanted. I always did what adults wanted. And adults want a moral child. I was always there, the holy one. I never took drugs, never smoked, never drank alcohol in my life, never even got an energizer and stuff like that. I was supposed to be the healthiest one, and I was so envious. When my sister got a boyfriend that was smoking, was drinking, he was doing drugs, what else was he doing? He was taking energizers like daily, he was eating junk food. Man, was he healthy. And I was just sitting there, sick, down to my bones, and he would just be happy, healthy, no problem. I was like, there's something wrong with this. There must be something wrong with this. I mean, maybe those drugs actually did him good. Maybe my plants are killing me. But I began having hallucinatory problems without taking drugs. And they had quite vivid imagery that I'm not going to bring to your mind, but there was one major thing that completely changed my view of life that's worth mentioning. After being under such pressure, my sleep was very troubled. I would sleep 12 to 14 hours, and when I would wake up extremely tired. And the reason was like so. Say I'm right here, I talk with you, then we go and eat, we have the normal schedule, Mark is going to present. Later on, we might have some activity, and then we go to sleep. Next day comes up. We have our schedule, we have the morning devotional, then all of the things go in order. Later on, I would present something, and then night would come, and I would go to sleep, and I would wake up. Actually, it was the first day. Actually, it was just the first day when I just went to sleep. And first time when it happened to me, I was like, what? Did I just dream a whole day from start to finish? But it was actually just a dream. And I told it to my parents. My parents were always just laughing, always taking things lightly. And when I told it to them, they just laughed about it. They were like, ho, ho, ho. But I was like, what happened there? And the thing was that physics worked. And I found my tools at work at the same place where I left them the day before. And it just, everything was the same as reality. For first night, I remembered it clearly, when the dream started and when the dream stopped. But this thing kept going on for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, I did not really know the boundary from reality to dream. At this point, after being under such pressure, I remember that there was a girl that was, she was supposed to be my predecessor. She was supposed to be the first one to be taught by the man that I was living with, the missionary with the plants. But she kind of drifted away. She went to college and stuff like that. And she texted me, do you know any plants for this kind of disease? And when I just took my phone out, I was like having a message from her, and she was talking as if we talked before. And I was like, well, I didn't talk before with her, and I just opened my phone, and I was like, when did I have this conversation? At that point, I really thought reality is not real. And then, probably, it was like the 11th day of having these dreams. I don't have a very clear memory of the days, because it felt like it was a never-ending day. Going to sleep and immediately waking up. Going to work, doing all of your work, thinking that it's real life, and then when you would go to sleep, actually it was just a dream. You wake up in the real reality, and you have to go to work. You kind of imagine how that felt. It was very, very tiresome. And oftentimes when I would wake up, if I felt like somebody would wake me up with a shovel, just smacking me with a shovel in my head. And the hardest one was when, in about the 11th day, I went to sleep. This is reality. And then I went to sleep. I had this very vivid dream. And in the vivid dream, I was convinced that it was reality. I went to sleep in the vivid dream, and I had another vivid dream in the vivid dream. Does that make sense? Now, in the vivid dream, I realized, wait, this is a dream. There was something that did not work as properly as it would do in the real life. And I was like, wait, this is a dream. And when I realized that, I woke up, but I did not woke up in the next dream. I woke up in reality. And that shift from being so entangled, thinking that that's reality, and being taken out of it and realizing that I had a dream in a dream, when I realized that, when I woke up, it felt like somebody just smashed me with a baseball ball straight into my head. And I was just like, bam! I just let my head down, and my head smacked on the margin of my bed, because when I would wake up during that time, I would wake up like jumping. I would be straight functional, like jumping out. I was very tired, but I was already functional. Like I would think I would be able to grab things, to do normal things. But this time, when I jumped up, I just fell on the side and smashed my head. I was so confused and so tired. And at that point, I just said, I'm not real. I'm not real. I'm not gonna try to find out if God is real, if He loves people, if whatever, because I have no way of knowing what is reality. Because up until that point, I was doing a lot of tricks. Up until that point, where I was just taking a notebook, and in reality, I would tear up a page. If I would tear something in reality, it would not be tore in the dream. But if I tore something in the dream, it would not be in reality. And that's the way I kind of managed to realize. Daily, I would just rip a page, and I would be like, this is number 1. And after I just rip the page, I go to sleep, And next day, even if I'm in the dream, I rip the page. If the next day I wake up and it's actually reality, if I look in the notebook, there was a page missing. And that's how I kind of realized a little bit which one is reality and which was not. Because in the dream, I was like, whoa, everything works. So I just went to work and I found my tools where I had them. All right, let me take my tool and let me hit myself with it. And I did that in reality, sadly. And then I also did it in the dream. But it was hurting as much as in reality, it was hurting in the dream. And I was like, wait, can you feel pain in your dream? Is that possible? Well, it certainly was for me, because people said, if it hurts you, it's real. If you can smack your head against it, you can be sure that it's real. Matter is real. That's what everybody kind of thinks. But at this point, nothing was real anymore. Because I just got to this conclusion that I'm not real after a whole lot of reasoning. And the main reasoning was the serpent's reasoning. I was asking questions that if anybody would try to answer them, it's already a failure. You've lost if you try to answer my question. I was asking serpent's question. That's how he did it with Eve. Any kind of answer would mean you've already failed. And my reasoning was like this. How do you know that I'm real? Well, you could say that you see me, right? You can touch me. You can hear me, all right? We have the senses. Now, is something real if you see it? This is already the serpent's question. I'm just getting you a little bit to know what was in my mind during that time. Is something real if you can see it? Is something real if you can hear it? Is something real if you can touch it? Is something real if it can hurt you? If when you struck your hand with it, it hurts you. Is that real? Would you call, if you just take up something and then smack it on your hand, would you call that thing real? All right. If those things are real, then my dream is real. Because in my dream I saw, I heard, I touched, and it hurt. But if it is not that by which you see, you hear, you touch, and it hurts you, is reality, then reality is not real. You can kind of see the way of reasoning. But this was my final one. This was the ending one that kind of got me the stamp of, I am not real. Before that, I was having about 200 notes that were just making the framework. And God had a lot of work with me to take all of those out later. Now, during that time, I would speak with people mostly about mundane things, and very, 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 at a very surface level. Because I was afraid people would just find out that I'm crazy and they would send me to a mental disorder place. So I was the holy one. Now, I was just talking about doctrines. I was just doing religious talk always. In the Sabbath, oh, even better, because now nobody had any sort of way of reproving me for always talking about the righteous things. I would be only about the spiritual matters, and I would leave the real life stuff kind of apart so that people don't realize that, oh man, this guy has some trouble. He thinks stuff happened that didn't happen. Now, while I was in that state, I reached the deepest part. But God was just preparing hope. There were some people whose house burnt. And my family, because my dad is a constructor and my mom is always there with the sort of way, I want to be useful, I want to help, they kind of got on this opportunity to go there and help these old people to build their house. They just called them, oh, are you the people that got the house burned? And they were like, yep, can we just come today? And they were like, all right. My parents just said, well, we live 6 hours away of driving, so we are going to be there quite late. And they were like, it's okay. And then my parents, without any other question, just went straight away. When they reached that place, something was off, because they reached a beautiful gate that was supposed to be opened by a special button or by controlled by somebody else remotely. And they were like, that's kind of expensive. Now, my family got up, and slowly they started to see a huge mansion, and then another one upwards. And they were like, maybe we got to the wrong place, but actually this is the address that they gave us. They just reached that place, they got down the car, and they were like, well, let's see what happens, because something's off here. And they got to talk with the people, and they were actually living in now, the old people that had their house burned. They had, I don't want to overestimate, but it was more than a couple $1 million house. They were just in the other mansion, meanwhile. That was of the grandma. And my parents were like, what? And then they got up to the big mansion that was built much, much earlier. And they started to talk with some people there, and they realized that, oh, we are actually at a missionary center. The house downwards are with the people that came a little bit later from America, but upwards there were 4 families that were doing missionary work at this center. And my family got invited to participate at some of their seminars. I was already living most of my time at that man that was doing medicine and stuff like that. And my parents just thought maybe it would be good to bring Antonio over here. He might meet some nice people. And they just got back, and they were like, would you like to come with us to these people, a missionary center, young people? And I was like, no, thank you. Because at this point, I was speaking with nobody else that I have already known. And it was a nudge that I got from my teacher, from my mentor. He said, it would be good for you. You could go there, learn what kind of ways other people think, and come back more ready to do more ministry work. And I was like, if you say so, all right. Later, he kind of regretted that, because I got to work at the center and leave him. Now, I went there with my family, and it was a shock for me when I got there. I saw a lot of children that were happy. And for me, that was like bliss. To see children that were happy. I saw a man that had, he has 6 children, and 5 of them are girls. And I saw his girls just hugging him and sitting on his lap, and I was like, those children actually don't know what abuse means. Those children actually lived a good life. And I looked at their father, and he was the preacher. And I looked at him, and I was like, I think he's out of this world. To have 5 daughters, and they would be just clearly showing that they don't know what abuse means. I was like, wow. Probably you know that the number 1 offender is the biological father, and the second one is the stepfather. That was just amazing. And then I met another young man that, when I saw him, he was the embodiment of a tyrant. His actions, his movement, his face, everything was just the embodiment of a tyrant. I just looked at him and I was like, if this guy didn't want to control all of his life, the people around him, he probably manipulated everybody, he just lied to everybody, he just used different kind of faces for everybody. I just looked at him and I was like, this is the definition of a tyrant. He would just use you and then throw you away. But then, when I would look in his eyes, there was something else. He had the body of the tyrant with the look of somebody that's changed, somebody that could actually help people, somebody that could actually do something unselfish. And he got up front, and he was supposed to do a small seminar thing, and he started to talk about things that a tyrant would never want people to know about, because you just lose the hold of manipulation over them. And I was aware of all of those things because I was a tyrant myself. Because I was always lying, I was always pretending to be somebody else. Meanwhile, I was just controlling everybody around me because I wanted safety. If they don't know that I control them, it's no problem. I'm just gonna have my safety assured. That's why I always wanted to prove myself as being the best, because everybody would just choose me in any kind of circumstance. So I was just ensuring my backup. And he was the kind of guy that was the prodigal son, and I was the son that stayed at home. But we were broken in the same way. We kind of understood each other from the first time that we saw. And he got into a small talk with me, and he told me another person that went through some abuse in her life, and he just told me, you can go and talk with her a little bit. And after I've gone and talked with that woman, she kind of gave me hope. And then, when I got to the actual seminars, when I saw that, wow, these people talk about something objective, a law that does not change. That was something that I wanted in my life, because all of my life was now just scrambled apart. I would not find anything real. I wanted something, an anchor. And to me, this idea of something objective was wonderful. My family got invited after the seminars to work as volunteers at the center. I got back, I told my teacher, I'm going there, not sitting with you a moment, I'm going there. And he was so surprised, probably he got sick afterwards. And I just left him out of my egoism. I was like, there's hope, I go there. He did not know, he was not aware of any of my troubles, unfortunately. I really thought he would be the one to spot me, but he was never able to spot me. I was like Judas between the other disciples, and nobody could spot me. That felt frustrating. Oh, and when I got back, I actually had to work 6 months with my dad to finish all of his work so that then we could go as volunteers at the center. We did the work of 2 years in just 6 months, waking up very early, and it was construction work. It was heavy work, but when you had a purpose, when I was thinking, there's hope, I gotta get there. We were working from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. hard, and eventually we got to the center. Now, one thing that it would be worth you to mention, the first week when I got back home, my irreal thoughts came back over me. I was like, oh man, what if that whole thing was not real? What if it was just a dream again? And it just struck in my heart. I was like, man, if I got hope and I did not cling onto it, I just fell back, I desire death. I don't deserve to live. And I just prepared all of my things since I've been working with my dad in construction. I knew which cables I was supposed to cut to be ensured that I would get hardly electroshocked to finish everything in less than a second. I was there, prepared all of my tools, and then my parents were supposed to leave for a 2-hour drive, buying some things, and then coming back. And they were supposed to take my younger brother. At the last minute, they were like, oh, we'll leave your younger brother with you at home. I was like, oh, man. All right, I'm going to give him some work. He's going to go in the cellar. He's going to do the work, 20 minutes about, and I'm going to do my work meanwhile. I was there. I was like 5 centimeters away from the cable. And I was thinking, if my younger brother finds me, he's is going to remain traumatized for life, because the thing that I wanted to touch probably is not good to think about how a bird person looks, your eyes melt. And I was thinking, if he's going to see that, he's going to remain traumatized for life. All right, I'm going to do it tomorrow morning. We had a big cliff around us. It was about 50 meters, a big fall, and then down rocks. And rocks would also fall from up above. If somebody would fall there, they wouldn't be found. I thought, that's the way. But that night, when my parents got back, they called the people at the center. And I just heard somebody there saying, oh, we are waiting for Antonio as for hot bread. We just have a great need for young people. We need a lot of work to be done in the garden, and we know that he's with the gardening. All right, we wait for him. And that kind of brought me a lot of hope. And then they just suggested to my parents a couple of presentations, and I took note of them, and I watched them exactly that evening. And I realized, wow, even John the Baptist, he saw the dove just descending on Jesus, and then he doubted. And then I realized my doubts are just effects. They are supposed to be effects. They are not the cause. So even if I doubt, I trust that God later is going to solve this problem. And this hope started working in me. And I said, I don't need to die now. There's a lot of need for godly people to work in His work. I cannot die. These people just offered their lives at this center, and I'm just cowardly just dying there somewhere? No, I gotta get into God's work. It took me around 7 to 8 months to believe that I'm real. And during that time at the center, I never talked with anybody. I did not tell them about my problem. I said, if God can tell it to me in my mind, it's worth it. But if it's just some other people that are going to teach me some other things, as I have been taught all my life, well, it's worth nothing. And slowly, but surely, God worked in me. And by the time Margaret got to our camps, I was in a medium state. I was convinced that God is, if reality is real, that was a big if. If reality is real, then God would be the God of Christianity. He would not be some maniac. But the big if was still there, if reality is real. And I just pushed it aside. I was like, I'm not going to deal with it. Maybe it's just some crazy question that I'm asking, and I'm just going to push it aside. And then I did my translation work for Margaret and Deborah and all of the other people that were there, and it could really be seen that God worked during that time, because I was translating and then seeing on the face of somebody that they did not understand properly. And then I would translate forward what Horst was supposed to say. He could have gone any other ways, but I just translated already what he was supposed to say, and then went back and told and clarified that point to that person. And when I would end, Horst would end with the sentence that I have already translated. And one of the men that was there, he just walked by. He knew English, and he was like, "How did you do that?" And I'm like, "What?" "Well, you just translated ahead." And I'm like, "Well, you're right." He's like, "Did you just make a prediction about what he's gonna say?" And I was like, "Probably." He said he could have gone in a million directions, and he did say, for like 2 sentences, exactly what you said. Like, God clearly worked, but he used it as a polishing stone, because missionary work is used by God to polish us. And he used this kind of environment to get me more grounded into reality. And then slowly I realized that, wait a minute, for a couple of months I did not have even one weird dream. I did not hear any of my hallucinatory stuff or saw anything. And then when I got to a point where I had a clear mind, I just was able to look back, and I realized the cause of all my problems. We always think it's about us. It's about me. It happened to me. that evil that has happened, that abuse, that thing, the other, they are all about me, me, me. And when I realized that, even when I had hate for bad people, because they were doing evil unto good people, I was actually hating the bad people because when they hurt the good people, I was hurting. I did not want the hurt of the good people to be alleviated. I wanted my own suffering to be alleviated. I just wanted to live a good life, and I thought that if somebody is out there in the world living a bad life, I'm not allowed to live a good life. I thought that if there's somebody out there in the world suffering, I'm not allowed to live a good life. And I said, well then, everybody must be changed so they don't do evil unto others. But I was just wanting that for myself. And when I realized that, a lot of the pressure just went off. And then I was touching so often on this topic of the cross. And every time when I would get to it, I would leave off some of the baggage. And then I would get back to it and, oh, that's also right. I would leave more of the baggage and more of the baggage and more and more and more. And then, at some point, I was able, during the seminars, to speak with stranger people that I would have never been able to do that before. And then I would be able to share a little bit of what I've been through with people that actually had a very hard time, like abusive kind of background. And it helped them so much. And then they would just, wow. And then I gotta go and help that person that abused me. And I'm like, right, that's exactly what I did. Because God helped me to help my abuser a lot of times. He gave me the opportunity to hug him. He gave me the opportunity to help him. And I was just encouraging other people to do the same. And then, getting in contact later with them, I just found out that their life got better and better. God used me slowly and gradually. And when I look back, I realized, oh, right. So I had this doubt first. Then, it slowly got me into the questioning God. Then it got me into the hate for the evil people. Then that got me a lot of the pressure. Then at some point I just said, if I would have the word hate written on all of the cells in my brain, it would not be enough to express how much hate I was having. I was just a small blob of hate in the universe, just being there, like a small bacteria yelling to you, you are unjust, oh, you God, what are you doing? I thought I was so big when I was so small. And when I started to take off that baggage, the more God was kind of using me in His work. And then, actually, I got invited by Margaret here, and that's a whole nother story for the next devotion that I would have in one of these mornings. And I would just want to leave you with a last message of hope. It is very beautiful that God never gives up. He's always there. He's the one that gets down into your madness and gets you out of it. May God work in our lives, real transformation. May we have Christ in us, and that would be a loud cry in and of itself. Be blessed.
Thank you so much. Antonio, I remember you having a breakthrough while we were at the camp too, about reality, objective reality. I remember you running off saying, I've just had this breakthrough, and then you were off because you had a job to do.
Yes, I had a huge breakthrough during the work that I was doing, the translations. I just got one of the big puzzle pieces for one of my major sort of arguments against reality. I understood one of the major things that I was getting wrong in my mind while I was translating for them. It's too long. I've already gone over what my time was supposed to be.
Well, thank you so much. We praise God for all He has done and all He continues to do for you, and that He's able to use you to share His wonderful transforming message.
Amen.
We're going to have a special item now, but maybe we just say a wee prayer. I think it would be nice. Father in heaven, we want to thank you and praise you for the work that you have done in Antonio's heart, and not in ours, but we know there is still more to do, and we have the hope and the faith that you will continue this work until it has come to completion. And we know that soon Jesus will come when this work is finished. So we pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So if we'd come up again, thank you.
It's the wrong song.
This has the longer lead.
Are you standing at a crossroad, wondering which road you should take, and you're dreading the decision and a possible mistake? But the will of God won't lead you where the grace of God can keep you. You will never be to